Those of you who listen to The Broken Brain know that I love clever, creative people. And today I get to talk to Tiffany Kim Stevens, who is the director of the sci-fi dark comedy Trigger Happy. But speaking of clever, creative, and sci-fi, you might be interested in the new novel, Lily Starling and the Voyage of the Salamander, by Christian Hurst. That's right, Christian Hurst. You may recognize that name. He's been on this very show. In fact, he might be my very brother. That's right. My brother's written his first novel, Lily Starling and the Voyage of the Salamander. And you can get this wherever you get your books. You can go to Amazon and get it for your Kindle. You can go to Barnes & Noble and get it for your Nook. You can go to Kobo and get it for your whatever the corresponding device is for Kobo. I think you can read it on many of the same devices. Doesn't matter. You can go and get it today. Buy it now. Read it then. Thank me later.
The Broken Brain.
Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Broken Brain. It's me, Dwight, your host, today to talk about some of the interesting things going on out in the world, the intersection between psychology, culture, creativity, and lots of other words. And we're going to get into lots of other words today. That's most of what a podcast is. Words exchanged amongst people. There we go. You can use that definition, anybody out there, if you want to. I am joined today by Tiffany Kim Stevens, who is the director of the very interesting and exciting new movie, Trigger Happy, which is streaming now on pretty much all of them platforms. Wasn't that what you're saying? You can Amazon, Apple, maybe some others?
Yes. All the platforms for your convenience in the comfort of your own home.
Nice. Well, welcome, Tiffany. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really, really fun. I'm excited.
And I got your title right in here, didn't I? You're the director of this movie.
Correct. I am the director.
And I always like to have the creators tell us something about the description. I could read, the press release or the IMDb, but you can give us a more intimate description of the film, I think.
I can. Yeah, here's my quick elevator pitch. It is set in a 50s inspired world where gender roles are reversed, and it is about a repressed house husband who attempts to murder his breadwinning wife for life insurance. Dark comedy, satire.
It is that. Both of those for sure. This is a really fascinating kind of an idea. One of the things that hits right up top as well is that this is a very... and who knows, it may be a little different than in real life, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily different anyway, but it is a kind of a violence and, very gun obsessed culture that they live in as well.
Correct. It is an uncanny world where if you own a gun, you get free health insurance. And that piece of inspiration came about a really turbulent time where Daniel Moya, who was writing the film, we wrote in 2019, which was a very politically heated time in America, as I'm sure we can all recall. And we thought to ourselves, you know what? How can we create a world that is both Democratic and Republican? And that's what we came up with.
Universal health care, but only if you have a gun.
Correct.
Yes. So yeah, that was one of the first things I wanted to get at was some of the genesis of the ideas that led to this story. Did it start with, you give the pitch now of the description, but where did it kind of start with? And when did you get involved?
It started with actually me. I wrote the first draft of the script, which was bare bones, very messy, bullet points. And then I gave it to Daniel to make it the entertaining film that it is today. We took a very character-driven approach as opposed to a plot world-driven approach. And the characters, Annie and George, who are the protagonists, are actually inspired by my parents, funny enough. And the reason why I chose them is because I knew it was going to be my first feature film. And those are the two first people that I've ever met. And it only just made sense to make my first film about the first two people that I've ever known.
I like that too, because I'm a big fan of good world building. However, when you're telling a story, I think a good world built, if that's a way to say that, is only as good as the story that is happening within that world. Otherwise, you could just sit around and chat about it or whatever and say, "Wouldn't this be cool?" The lore, but you have to have an accessibility in order to care about the world that these people are inhabiting. And what made you decide to do it in a gender role reversal way as well? That was a very interesting piece of this.
Well, a huge thing was that my parents are very traditional. You know, my father was the man of the house, and my mom was the woman of the house. And even though they were so polarized in terms of their gender roles, given that society today is fluid and the reconstruction of what gender is very different than what it was, you know, back then for them. And they're much older. They're in their 80s now. And I wanted to give a feminine voice to my father and a masculine voice to my mother. And this was a way for them to for me to explore that version of them in this fictional world.
Yeah. One of the things that I always appreciate and I liked in this was that it wasn't, how should I put it? Heavy-handed, maybe that's the word I look. Heavy-handed in the sense of like, I could totally see, and there have been films out there that are like, let's change roles, let's do this, let's flip this, and whether racial, prejudicial, gender roles, all that. Just showing off that I know what roles are, people. Anyway, but when people switch that, sometimes they can just hit, oh, here's the biggest stereotypes of those roles. Let's just get those right out there. Where I felt like yours was a much more subtle approach to some of the elements of those roles that maybe aren't just the obvious ones. I don't know how did you approach that and decide how do we emphasize this?
Well, thank you for picking up on the fact that it's subtle, because the film has no agenda. You know, it's not like, oh, we want to comment on gender. We want to comment on politics. We want to comment on these things. It's like, no, the whole point is a cautionary tale, and it's a villain's journey. And here is just the wacky world, and here are these characters. Like, I almost want to say the themes of gender and politics are secondary to the main point that we're trying to make, is that life is absurd and you should just be able to laugh.
As if you're watching, I don't know, like the best versions of films. You're not, I don't know, people aren't walking around being like, we're aliens over here or whatever. And so just inhabiting the world and how they act in that world. That is interesting, because I think there is a lot that's left to the viewer to kind of say, how would I feel about that? Don't really care for that kind of thing. One of the things that stands out is you have a character, and I think one of the maybe conflicts in the relationship is that with the whole thing that it creates with gun ownership, right, is that Annie doesn't want to own a gun, and George either does or just wants the benefits of having one.
Yes.
And I thought that was interesting to say, you know, there's so much incentive for that in this world that would have to be a pretty principled, there's got to be a reason to not want one, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. I mean, obviously the plot of the film is that George wants to kill his wife, and he is physically taking the actions to do that. And Annie wants to kill her husband mentally, but she's not physically taking the actions to do that. She has intrusive thoughts. You know, she thinks of her inner psyche as pretty disgusting, and that's why the world around her is super clean. That's why she has, you know, photos of paintings of vacuums on the wall. She is obsessed with bleach. She cleans her hands with bleach because in her brain, she has pure OCD with very, very intrusive thoughts. And so I think her owning a gun would give her the leeway to actually play out her very intrusive fantasies, and she fears that. Yeah.
And you see where the presence of that does in fact lend itself, I mean, in real life as well as you guys hit this too, for quick bad decisions when there's a gun involved that maybe you'd be more hesitant to do without one, right? So
yes.
And it's the kind of thing that even though it's kind of set alternate and then 50s-ish, we're really looking at a lot of the things that still hang on with some like modern life kind of. This is not a complimentary, even if you don't have an agenda. It's not saying like, oh, modern life is great and swell, which I don't know if there's a ton of interesting stories that try to make it sound like everything's cool. But in particular, I mean, we see a real difficult world that George, as someone who is basically ineffective in most of the things he's trying to do, but you get a vibe of him viewing society as I just can't get a break. Whereas so there's a legitimacy to that, I guess, that the world around is very hard and not supportive of developing fulfillment, right?
Yes, correct. I think it also is, so much of George's, even in his monologue, he says, I did everything society told me to do, and it didn't pan out in the way that I wanted to because the world has changed. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, go to school, get a degree, and then suddenly you should be in the job market and everything is well and good. You can have your house in the suburbs and the American dream or whatever that means to you. And society is just not like that anymore. And times have changed. And the idea that these characters were not told to adapt or didn't know how to adapt. Mm-hmm. And that's his perspective on things. And yet the way that he's playing that out by doing something really horrible to his wife is the manifestation of, what a villain is. Mm-hmm. Someone who really victimizes themselves and someone who thinks they're doing everything right and I am a good person and doesn't have like a sort of self-aware critical eye on mm-hmm. the world around them.
Yeah. In fact, there's one point where there's a friend or an acquaintance who makes a comment of like, well, George is selfish and self-destructive, and I actually really enjoyed that they trail off. They don't say, the but doesn't really have much to come after it, where you can see this person struggling to say, what should I say that's nice about him?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the words that kept coming up in my mind as I watched this was stuck, because it seemed like, I don't know about everybody, but it seemed like most of the key players in this movie feel or are stuck in one way or another, or at least they're acting like they are. And I was curious if that was, something you were thinking about as you were creating it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you picked up on that, because so much of really, again, this is a cautionary tale, and as funny and absurd and wacky as it is ultimately a tragedy. And in order, and my philosophy on screenwriting and storytelling is that in order for it to really be a true tragedy, characters cannot adapt and move on. It is that is the downfall of every character in a tragedy, is their inability to adapt and move forwards. And hence why being stuck is a character point in the hero's or villain's journey that ultimately lead to, the ending.
Yeah. In fact, I think you demonstrate in this something that happens a lot with people is that either overtly or covertly, there's hard work that goes into perpetuating the things that are miserable in a way. Like,
yes,
I'm going to just self-medicate with this kind of action or this kind of thing, or I'm going to whatever I'm doing, to the point where I'm putting so much work into avoiding, how did you put it, moving on with life or trying to actually repair a bad situation. It comes up a lot where people are kind of like, okay, we're not happy. Do we want to change? I can't because of Phil. And I almost got the feeling that there was like a fill in the blank. I can't fix my situation because that.
Absolutely. Yes. It's, all these characters have their own confirmation biases and their own core values. And so much of what that is, I need to control my external circumstances instead of doing my own inner work to heal myself. And that is ultimately what causes the tragedy.
Do you feel like that's something that this might sound like an obvious question, but I'm just curious if does that come from just things that you observe around the world or people's, I don't know, getting stuck that way, sticking themselves into learned helplessness, whatever?
I think so. I think it's so easy to try. And, I feel like a lot of people in the world don't have control over whatever they feel like they need, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And then that manifests in them trying to control things externally for whatever validation that they need or to feel safe and secure. And ultimately, that doesn't change anything. And then when you're not able to change your external circumstances, it just causes you to spiral even more. simple things like on an everyday level with road rage, for example. A lot of the times you can't control your external circumstances and then you get angry. And then really when you get angry in your car, what that's doing is projecting that anger back onto you. Because you could be like, oh my God, move, move. And the other person in the car is just like, la, 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 I'm just driving, you know? So that's how I sort of like, that's what I brought to those characters and also discussed with Daniel to be able to like really dive into, the psychology of what control is and how that affects the public versus private.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that I hear people talk about sometimes when they read fiction or watch movies. They'll say, well, why didn't they just do this? And it's like, yeah, that's the point though, right? I mean, is that we perpetuate self-destructive behavior rather than do things that would actually probably solve the problem in the long run, right? And I think I saw that a lot in George, that it's not like, well, I don't know. I mean, you can tell me what you created the world, but to me, it's like, well, they're not completely insurmountable problems if you were to actually, in a healthy way, try to address them. But they are overwhelming problems that can seem insurmountable. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I think when a character gets to the point where they want to murder another character, that is so extra, that is so extreme, that is so delusional. You have to victimize, you have to put yourself in such a level of, superiority, but also deep insecurity to be at that point, which is so extreme. Like I deserve more, I deserve better, but I want this and I want that, but I don't want to do any of the work. And I think it'd just be easier to pop this person off and get the money, So it's like,
go ahead.
Go on. No, we're good. That was the end of my train of thought.
Yeah. Would you define, would you say that George is narcissistic? Because he seems self-loathing, but go ahead.
Has narcissistic tendencies, but I wouldn't consider him a narcissist. Mm-hmm. I think he has victim mentality. I think, his circumstances have messed him up in many, many ways. But I think he is taking the easy way out by like almost finding comfort in the complacency and apathy and the negativity, because it's easy to bitch than it is to do something about it.
Right. And it's interesting because, as you put it, like it's easy in the sense that he's viewing this as a one-step solution. If we get the life insurance, or get the life insurance. At the same time, he's working hard and failing. I mean, so it is interesting to say, here's the easy way that's actually requiring a lot of effort.
Yes. Yeah. It's all, really all unfortunate circumstances. And it's sort of like this character is at his version of rock bottom, or what he feels is rock bottom. And ultimately, again, characters cannot control external circumstances around them. So it's like, is he going to scrounge his way out of rock bottom, out of the hole, or is the hole going to get pulled from under him? And ultimately, both things are happening at the same time. Like he is really being tested in all ways. He's crawling out of the trenches, but also the trenches are just getting dug even deeper.
I was curious how you approach the character of Annie, because one could say that she seems more, I don't know if more optimistic is the right word, but she certainly doesn't seem to have the hopelessness. She is one who is at least putting effort into some areas of what she would like to see happen.
Yes. Annie is an external perfectionist. She wants her house to be perfect. She wants her life to be perfect. She wants to be seen as perfect. She wants to look pristine because of how messy her thoughts are internally. And she's almost overcompensating for the fact that she has very intrusive visions of murdering people that are visceral to her and very real to her. And she's in denial of that. And I think being able to, let me bleach my hands is the only way that I can, deal with that.
Mm-hmm. And one of the traits that I saw that came up, that I don't know if this was a purposeful kind of gender trait, maybe more subtle, is that from her perspective, what she's pursuing, she wants to be an actress, and she's so excited about this opportunity. And then she's almost offended at the question of, well, how much are they paying you? To, in a sense of like, well, almost to the point where it's like, this is my plan and you shouldn't tell me, how to feel about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just see guys being that way in particular. Maybe unreasonably
I mean, yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah. It was a little jab on that. It was also a little self-aware moment for entertainment industry folks. Cause, when people usually enter the industry very early in their careers, a lot of them are asked to work for free for credits. And it's just
for exposure.
Hey,
that was basically right.
Yeah, for exposure. Yeah. Yes. That's a common thing at entry level and industry jobs. So it's just a little bit of a self-aware snap to Hollywood there.
And it sounds like as you're creating this world, violence certainly seemed to play a big role in this world, that there's at least the day-to-day expectation of violence seems to be pretty high.
Yes. One, it's great to watch. It's just a visual dynamic spectacle that is just entertaining. And also, this being my first film, I wanted to really push my technical cinematic prowess and being able to use prop guns and squibs and blood rigs and all this fun stuff that is just, as a film kid, is just, yes, like, great. That's awesome to experience and do. But I think ultimately, it is just, how can we create something that looks visually expensive for a low budget and really be able to play that out? And I think also naturally, given that it is a very pro-gun world, those violence and guns just go hand in hand.
Well, and it struck me that, like many things that are satire, there was an element of the quiet part being said out loud. In other words, it didn't seem like it was fully invented as a part of that world. It was just something that they're less apologetic about. Maybe it's like the gun lobby is in charge of us. You basically saying, where instead of just being like, we'll just let that be how it is, but we just won't talk about it because
Yeah, definitely.
When you approach something like this in the writing and the production stage, as you put it, a dark comedy, how do you balance that when you're trying to say, how much do we put in here that's, is there a darkness that could detract, or is the comedic, does that ever undermine the darkness? Well, I'll say, does it? I've seen it happen as a viewer in other, in movies. It seemed like you guys struck a balance there, but is that how conscious is that, and how do you try to make that happen?
It's pretty conscious. I mean, ultimately, from the medium of filmmaking, you either want to watch a movie and laugh, cry, or scream. Like, you want to feel something, you want to go on an adventure, you want to be on an emotional journey. And we knew we wanted to make people laugh. But it isn't sort of, ha, funny, here's the punchline to do. It's a, whoa, here is an absurd situation. Here are these wacky characters in this very uncanny world. I can't help but laugh. Mm-hmm. I think I take the philosophy and more of maybe an existential approach to life is short. We don't know whether there's going to be another life or not after we die. Why go through life without laughing at everything that happens around you? Because why take life so seriously? And that was really the moments of humor that came in. It's sort of like the under the skin of like, should I laugh? I don't know if I should, but like, I kind of want to, and that's okay. And that's how we really actively approach the comedy of it.
There is George has a daily lottery habit that we see playing a role in this, which causes him to go into what I felt was kind of kind of almost a foundational grounding point in the movie, is this little general store that everybody seems to go to. I was like, Kent? Oh, I didn't look it up right before. Kent.
It's Kent.
Okay. Yeah, Kent, the proprietor of the store, seems to be, I don't know if I'd call him the most grounded, person in this. I'm not sure, but I'm curious about that character and what role did you feel like the store and Kent played, and how you built him?
Kent needed to be one of the only characters, and is the only character that is not a villain. And he represents the audience. So he's sort of this neutral third party that understands the characters, but does not engage in any way and does not want to take part in any of the absolute shenanigans that these characters are going through. So in that regards, he represents the voyeuristic character. And, if we're going to go back to like Greek structure, he's almost like the chorus.
Interesting. It also seems to be maybe the only one that has much of a moral compass. as far as
Yes.
his decision making goes.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. He plays by the rules and he understands the laws in the world that he lives in, but is also self-aware and critical and curious and questions and has built a life for himself. You know, he's really the only one that has taken the world into his hands and has done something good, which is built his corner store and his company. And
yeah. I also got the impression that he seemed to be the only character who really cared about the other characters very much. I felt like everybody else viewed the existence. We primarily have these two couples, right? Are the ones that we mostly see. But it didn't seem like anybody in that foursome cared much about the other people other than beyond just how they affected them. Is that intentional?
That is absolutely intentional, and that is 100% correct. If there is a correct for the subjectivity of art, sure. Kent is a good character. He's a good person, and how I define good person is obviously someone that cares about their community, other people, has empathy, sympathy, and can see the humanity in everybody. And he is, again, that one shining beacon of light in this horrible cast of characters.
And we learn he's been floating George for a while, as far as like, and at some point he throws out the number of dollars that he's been just allowing him to have as a tab or whatever. So we find out there's something, there definitely is something on here to where he cares about him both maybe generally as a human, but also specifically, even though George can be does not seem to invest any gratitude in this either. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's also what makes Kent a hero character versus a villain character, is the ability to just show love and give love and lead with love.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's you mentioned before, the self-victimization that starts to happen too, because, for someone in George's shoes to be like, nobody cares about me at all. It's like, well, you have a good friend right here who's actually seems like they've already done a lot for you and is certainly interested in talking to you. And his only interpretation is this is just another person who is insufferable and I just can't take it and being put upon.
Yes.
The dynamic of feeling dismissed and depersonalized seems to be also a big part of the motivation of these individuals in this world.
Yes. I mean, they're all in their own heads, as you said, and they're all so self-driven and self-centered, and they center themselves. So I'm reversing my words, but their inability to see humanity in any other character is just ultimately villainous to me. And also their inability to take a moment to have any gratitude or appreciation for where they are is a big one. As you said nicely with George, he has such a great friend that's been fronting him and helping in so many ways. And he has not taken a moment to say, you know what? I feel a sense of gratitude today. This is a good day and this is a good friend. No, George is just unhinged and gone. He's like, well, I'm going to take what I can get from this guy. I want to go to the Bahamas and I'm going to kill my wife. It's just the extreme, he's entertaining, but it's the extreme version of how far gone a selfish person can be.
Well, and then the justification for the thing that I think I want to do or am self-medicating with, or however we want to call it, that becomes the this is air quotes, moral decision-making, principle-based decision-making, is it's through this one filter of, is this what I want it to be? Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that consistent confirmation bias just coming in to reaffirm his own motivation and decisions. Yeah.
In fact, I noticed that the only time that there was anything that even passed for a constructive conversation about the relationship that he and Annie have is in anger, when he's already made his decision of what he's trying to do. And so all there is anger and fear in this moment, but he yells at her like, can't you just at least pretend that you love me? Which actually, in a better setting and a better tone, could be a good question.
Yes.
Some kind of what is actually going on between us. There's times where, and I think this is an element of storytelling that I like, is where you almost want to reach through and just grab the characters and be like, one conversation would change a lot in your guys' lives.
Yes.
But when we see that, I do think it's realistic that people will go to great lengths to avoid those conversations because
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I think, at that point we're in act 3. So much of George's kind of vomit onto the screen is like, hey, this is what life should be like. This is what I was told. Here are the systems in play of what a marriage should look like, what my life should look like. And he had these subconscious societal expectations that are just not met. And so when he says, like, can't you just pretend to be nice? Like, that's what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be nice to each other. That's what I was told. And that anger just obviously spills out. And so it is, yeah. I mean, in other circumstances, it's a great question to ask your partner and, have that discussion. But given these characters and how they operate, it's sort of like,
Well, and it's completely contrary to the one time that she does do that earlier. He tells her not to.
Yes.
Which I think was interesting, where it's like, you're yelling at her for doing a thing that you stopped her from doing before.
Yeah. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Their whole relationship's a mess. Yeah.
What, as someone who's coming at this, not just with this project, but as a storyteller in general, what kinds of things motivate you to, that you want to get out there and you want people to experience through your work?
Well, this is a very stereotypical film kid answer, but given the current state of our planet with climate change and, what we're doing to this collectively, we're ruining this planet at the speed of light. And we are going to hit a point where, and this is my doomsday prediction, air is not going to be breathable. The temperature is going to be too volatile. And it's already happening. Society has become more and more insular. And we are watching our screens and staying at home and escaping through our TVs a lot more than we have been before. And being able to make a movie or a TV show or some sort of form of art will give people the ability to travel to places they've never been before. And mainly because I think, Gen B, Gen O, whatever generations come next, I don't want them to be there. It's going to be impossible to terraform, 8 billion people to Mars. Like, that's not feasible within our lifetime. And now with the development of technology, with VR headsets and bigger screens and surround systems at home, it's like, that's the best thing that we can do to keep people inside instead of being outside in a world where, air might not be breathable. So yeah, taking people to places they've never been before and letting them escape or travel just for 2 hours or so. It is really like what I really want. And then in terms of the more character driven level, I love showcasing characters who are at rock bottom and how they operate when they're at their worst. Because I think there's something really fascinating about seeing a human like really get cornered and how they react in a sort of fight or flight, freeze or fawn situation.
What kinds of things, you mentioned you're not in, I don't know if this is a general policy. You mentioned that you're looking for an agenda to get across here. But what kind of thoughts and feelings do you want to provoke?
I really want people to realize, and again, people probably already do, but I think people need to think about it more, is that life is short. We don't have a lot of time. And time is really the only currency that we have. Even in this crazy capitalist society, like your time is more valuable than anything. And how you spend that time is key. You want to end every day with lying in bed saying, hey, that was a great day. I can't wait for tomorrow. Something wonderful is going to happen tomorrow. And so having that sort of existential, nihilistic, but also positive outlook is really key for me in the way that I want to communicate to everybody. I don't have this specific agenda in the sense of like, I need to tell you about my Asian American immigrant journey. I need to tell you about, my life as a woman. Like, that's great. And I think there are plenty of filmmakers and stories that do tell that. What I want to tell people is, yeah, you might not wake up tomorrow. So I hope you have a really damn good day today.
Well, I want to give people a chance to know more about your work, and where they can follow you, and best places to support what you're doing. Before that, I always like to ask people if they have something they can suggest to people, and in this case, to help them maybe get up out of their space and do something to connect with other people, a way of giving back to the community. It could be a charity or nonprofit that you care about, or a good community practice. What would you tell people?
I volunteer for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Los Angeles, which is an incredible mentorship program where you get to mentor a kid that needs guidance and wants a sense of inspiration and hope. And I highly recommend to everybody to volunteer and sign up for Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, wherever you are in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a cool organization, and also, once again, as you put it, that makes sense. You would say that, given the philosophy you're talking about, is that person-to-person connection of people who may not have that otherwise. I appreciate you sharing that. Tell people a little bit about where do they follow you? Are there ways that we can, or are there projects that you'd like us to know about coming up, unless they're secret?
They are secret projects, but I can tell you that one's an action comedy and the other one is a folklore horror. You can follow me at Tiffany Kim Stevens on Instagram. You can befriend me on LinkedIn if you want to have professional conversations with me. Also, if you really want to do a deep dive, there is a high school YouTube channel somewhere on the internet, which I hope you find because I'm still looking for it. So that's how you can connect.
Any clues? Does it have your name in it or anything? How do we?
No, it doesn't have my name in it. Yeah, it's a photo. It's a stick figure photo of someone holding a camera, and I cannot for the life of me find it. But it has all my high school videos on it, and I'm dying to find those.
Oh, all right, everybody out there, you've got your assignment. So let's coordinate this. This is gonna be a group. This is going to be a crowdsourced detective mission that we're putting out there. Oh, I wanted to give all the listeners a quick reminder that this month, as you know, everybody out there, we highlight a local charity each month, and this month we are highlighting Bake Their Day, which is a nonprofit bakery headquartered in Guam. And what they do is they will bake birthday cakes that they will take to youth in custody primarily, but young people who are maybe in either youth detention or some kind of treatment facility or different places like that where they may not usually be experiencing a lot of celebratory stuff on their birthday, and in particular being able to bring them a cake is something that they do. You can go to baketheirday.org or follow them on Instagram as well if you'd like to get involved, if you'd like to donate, if you'd like to learn more about how to help that way. And as always, it doesn't ever cost us anything to just forward, right, the social stuff while we are busy scrolling. Any who have joined the Patreon in this month, just like every month, 50% of your monthly donations will go to Bake Their Day or to whatever charity in the month that you join, as long as you are a Patreon member. And then you also get the great warm feeling of helping us out to keep these episodes coming as well. So thanks to all those who are doing that. And big thanks to Tiffany Kim Stevens for being here. The movie, again, is Trigger Happy, and you can get that wherever movies are streaming. So, Tiffany, thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. Thank you to also all the Patreon members for supporting this and supporting independent film. And I'm full of gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Courtemp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Courtemp Arts shows, visit courtemparts.com.
Hello. I am so glad you're here. Welcome to the To Mom is to Love podcast. My name is Valerie Probstfeld. I am a nurse practitioner as well as an imperfect mom who loves. In fact, I thought I would be an A-plus mother before becoming a mom. However, as the years passed, I realized love is the only thing I can control. In fact, the verb to mother means to love. Merriam-Webster defines to mom as to give birth or rise, as well as to care for or protect. And just think about it. Love gives birth, allows ourselves and families to rise, and enables us to care for and protect. We have more power as moms than we realize. In 5 generations from now, you will have approximately 30 descendants, and the number keeps getting larger and larger. Motherhood is the most important job in the world. Our mission is to support, encourage, and empower each other as imperfect moms to love as a verb. Come join us as we navigate our shared name, live our verb, and rediscover our identity. Please subscribe, share, and follow. And I would love it if you leave a review so more moms can come join us. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as TikTok and YouTube. Please follow along with us on this beautiful journey we call motherhood.